Yeah, Jay Fry, right?
Yeah.
He texted me the other night.
To Florida.
Yeah. Well, I hope he enjoys it down there.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's drainage man, so it was his fault.
Explain how we're still here.
You know, actually, I kind of remember it the same way. Let's go with that. All right, go ahead. Sorry, we'll be serious now. Sure we will.
Let's go on and get started. Welcome to the session for ORD drainage, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we have three good panelists with us here today. We've got Tim Robinson, Jeremy Kubac, and Andrea Cull. Let me just real briefly kind of go into bios. By the way, I'm Keith Cameron with American Engineers. With Tim attended the University of Louisville, where he earned a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering and a Master's of Science in Engineering. He has worked with transportation and drainage design for over 25 years. He is married with 3 children and enjoys modern technology. Cut it off on
Martial
enjoys modern technology.
That too, martial arts.
Anyway, but he enjoys running martial arts and watching college basketball. Now let me back up here. Folks, I apologize. It could be too simple to have all of these listed together.
Who you looking at now, Jeremy?
Yeah, looking for Jeremy. There we go. Okay, Jeremy graduated from the University of Louisville with a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering. He has worked in the Louisville office of Grayson Smith since 2001 and is managing the transportation design team. And his experience includes roadway and drainage design, innovation intersections, shared use trails, and complete streets. He is past president of the American Society of Highway Engineers and is the Derby City section of recent graduate of Leadership PE. Jeremy lives in Shepherdville with his wife Alice and 4 children. Now, Andrea, let me see if I can find yours. And trying to keep from having paperwork handled. Modern technology is all good except when we're not all listed side by side. So, anyway, Andrea graduated from the University of Kentucky with a bachelor's and master's degree in civil engineering. She has worked in the Louisville office of Grayson Smith since 2013, and she has a variety of experiences, including roadway and drainage design and traffic analysis. She currently serves as president of the Kentucky section of ITE, and Andrea lives in Louisville with her husband, Kenan, and 2 children. With that, I will turn it over to Tim.
Erica, we're doing this with the laptop, not with the remote, correct? All right. My name is Tim Robinson. Again, I'm the KYTC Central Office Drainage Branch Manager. And we're going to talk about the ORD drainage, the good, the bad, the ugly. I know it's not named that in the program, but that's what we went with. So anyway, since Bentley has come out with the OpenRoads designer, those of us that do drainage have been kind of wondering what kind of hydrology and hydraulic functions are in this new program. And Andrea, Jeremy, and myself are hoping to provide you with a little bit of an overview of some of the drainage functions available in the drainage and utilities workflows for ORD. So we'll just jump right into it, and we'll let Andrea get into the good functions. Andrea is supposed to be the Clint Eastwood character, Blondie. So sorry, Carl.
Thanks, Tim. So I will be discussing the good aspects of the drainage and utility feature within ORD. This application is free with an OpenRoads license, which if you're completing work for KYTC, you probably have, so that's a benefit. It can model up to 100 inlets per DGN. So most of your projects will have less than 100 inlets, but projects with more than 100 inlets, you can separate your drainage systems into separate DGNs, kind of work around that. The OpenRoads drainage function utilizes StormCAD for hydraulic and hydrologic computations. So if you're familiar with StormCAD, that's what you've been using. This will be really similar to that. It's kind of like StormCAD and ORD combined. Like StormCAD, it uses HEC 22 for time of concentration hydrology and storm sewer analysis, and HDS 5 for culvert hydraulics. Got the sounds to keep y'all awake this afternoon. With ORD drainage and utilities, you can also analyze different return events within one DGN file. After establishing your IDF curve or table, separate alternatives and scenarios can be created to define your separate events for analysis, and it's all contained within one DGN. Built into this software is the ability to format your own output tables. These are called flex tables. KYTC has already developed a series of flex tables formatted for inclusion in the drainage submittal. So not only will this help in creating consistent drainage folders, but it will make additional computations and manipulations easier, since these flex tables are also exportable to Excel. Another benefit of the ORD drainage and utility function is the ability to link structures to geometry, corridors, or terrains. This allows the structure to update automatically as the model is changed. So for example, if you place a structure using like the gutter line, like type A, you can change the vertical alignment, and as your model changes, your inlet will also change with that gutter line. Okay, also, ORD's drainage and utility design, they use the same workflow. So this is a consistent process of using nodes and conduits for both drainage and utilities, and it allows for ease in design between these two systems. This also allows for ease of identifying conflicts between drainage and utilities in 3D view. So when you're creating a 2D system, a 3D model is simultaneously being created and referenced against the 3D utility files, makes it easy to identify and avoid those conflicts. Some final benefits are that the data is coordinately correct. That means that drainage design can be exported to a land XML and imported into other softwares, and it'll easily come into the correct location. So that also means that the drainage design can be exported to HEC-RAS for further 1D analysis. I'll pass it back to Tim, Angel Eyes Robinson.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and discuss a few of the less desirable things in here that we're trying to work on. Hope you all enjoy that picture. So last, take a picture of it right now because I'm not sharing it. All All right, first of all, everybody knows Richard Thomas. This is a better crowd because there's several people who know Richard a little better about this love of coffee. So Richard, anytime new software comes out, Richard's always hoping it's better, it's an improvement over what we're using, and he hopes that it's doing whatever modeling correctly. He's very meticulous about that, which I 100% applaud. I'm behind him. He pushes me on that. The other thing he always seems to hope is that it'll make his coffee for him in the morning. So I'm sorry, Richard, he'll do a lot of stuff, but it will not make coffee in the morning. Another question that I think a lot of us ask when new software like this comes out is, okay, this is the channel line analysis using the F15 algorithms. Right now, no, it does not. I do have a work ticket that I've placed with Bentley to try to get that in there. Originally, I had this as I'm not holding my breath on it, but since I've submitted this, I've talked to some Bentley folks and our IT group. And our IT group has a way of escalating certain requests. So I'm a lot more hopeful than I am now. So that was what the whole breath was about. I wasn't going to hold my breath this thing down, but a week later, I'm actually a little more optimistic that maybe we'll get something. I know that there's a couple of three of us that have come up with their own spreadsheets that can do this. Spreadsheets that can do channel line analysis. I don't see why the people can't come up with it. So cross your fingers, maybe we'll get that in there. That'd be like the last piece to get in there. This is a small thing, but it's something that it was really annoying. If you use Storm Sanitary and then even StormCAD, you know that if you're on an element on an inlet or a pipe, you can edit up and down your system just by clicking a little arrow. And the same buttons that are in StormCAD are in ORD drainage. They don't go anywhere. They're clicking it, doesn't do anything. So you have to go out, come back in, or go and actually physically click on whatever you want to look at instead of being able to scroll up and down. Again, it's not a big thing, but it was something that we found that if somebody has a way around it, that somebody's actually working this and has found a way to get that to work, please call me, email me, let me know so that I let everybody else know. And I think they do know about this as well. This is a big one. I know that those of you who've done ORD as far as roadway modeling know that seems you have a lot of steps to set up a task. And it seems like some of them are repetitive. And this is very similar. I'm going to have to read this without the glasses. But for instance, if you're going to set up a system to run, you first have to set the storm data. Then you go in and you set up a scenario that's got whatever the network is looking at. Then you have to set up the alternative. And then you have to actually define the event. So you have to go through all these steps. It seems like you're doing the same thing over and over again. So if you've been using StormCAD, you're probably used to that. But it's, again, it's the same workflow as StormCAD. For those of us who are Storm Sanitary or have been using other things, it's a little frustrating at first. Again, it's just getting in a habit. Once you get in a habit, I don't think it's a big deal, but it is something that, when you first start out, it's going to be a little bit frustrating. That was the wheel. Just we don't have all the structures in our preference files, which is the LGD line or whatever the library is. The GGGM, each line library. We don't have all the structures. We're working on it. We have consultants working with us. They are hoping to have the entire standard drawing library available in our standards in the spring. So I know that was a big thing when Mr. Moses over here released KY with Storm Sanitary, was we didn't really have the library for all of our things. And it's understandable. It's a massive library. He did a great job pushing it out. So, but we're going to try to make this as comprehensive as possible. Again, spring of 2022. The other thing, I mentioned this earlier, is we're hoping to get trained to a point, several of us in the cabinet, that if you have a structure that's a special structure, that we can work with you to develop a cell and then put all the information in it so that it's smart and it can be included as well. Now I'll pass this over to Tuco over here, Mr. Jeremy Kubac. He can cover the ugly side.
Tim. Now it's time to review some of the less than stellar attributes. Tim stole a little bit of my thunder, but as longtime users of Bentley Storm and Sanitary, we have found the workflow to be much less intuitive than what we're accustomed to. And of course, it's only our opinion, and the maybe a different experience for those people who have StormCAD background. One issue we found is the placement of drainage structures at a specific location can be difficult, and that's getting the correct location and orientation can take several attempts, seemingly until you hold your mouth right, and then you get it. We're assuming that, and then even following the heads up prompts can be difficult. Tried to follow each one by the letter, and then I still end up with it upside down or not at the right spot. So I'm assuming this is going to get better as we get better with our becoming more familiar with the software and more accustomed to the workflow. I think it's just going to be a matter of picking the right spot and all the right steps perfectly. And there still seems to be some glitches that need to be worked out. One of the frustrating issues is that the utility information flyout that allows you to modify a lot of the elements that are in this that you're placing tends to disappear at times. And the only way we found to get it is to go back up to the utilities view menu up on the rivet. And the best workaround that we found for that is just open it up and keep it docked and just really not rely on the flyout. So hopefully that stays a little or becomes a little more stable at some point. And then we've also had menus that get partially cut off to where there's fields that need to be like where you select something or an attribute, and you can't see all of it, and you just have to go find it in another area. So those are the things that are a little more time consuming that I hope over time get worked out. And potentially it's just a graphics card issue. It might not have anything to do with the software. Then the flex tables that we previously mentioned. One of the issues they have there is that on the output, when you go to print directly to PDF, you end up with some of your fields that end up with some kind of coding that's that's not what is originally on your screen, but it shows up with some other kind of coding that the workaround that we've been using now is to just take that data, paste it into Excel, and then either print to PDF or continue formatting. And so with a lot of these issues that we are finding, we're trying to internally at Gresham Smith make note of them and then pass them on to KYTC so that they can be more of an orderly fashion, getting changes made or updates made. Because that likely, if we're seeing a problem, other people are. So it's a way to kind of verify that whether it's an issue on our end or an issue with the KYTC workspace or with the software. Similar to the ORD roadway workflow, the drainage and utilities workflow does have a tendency to crash. And the best advice we can give is don't get click happy. Often when you click, there's a pause and it's hard to tell whether something's happening or whether it wasn't a full click. Let it go. Give it some time to process that, because very often these superfluous clicks are what cause you to have to restart the whole thing. So just give it time. And for full disclosure, we're not mentioning these issues to bash the software. I know within this group up here, we're pretty excited that we have a drainage software that's fully integrated with our roadway design software. We're just, we want to give an idea of what we've encountered early on. We're trying to be implement this as soon as possible. So that's, there's always going to be a learning curve. And so I know Tim's all in for drainage now in his new role, but Andrea and I still do roadway design. So we've got this on both ends with the OpenRoads designer for the roadway workflow and drainage. So everything we've been doing for years has completely changed. So it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose. And I know there's a lot of people in the same boat. So we know it's going to get better over time. The software is going to get better, and we're going to get better at using it. So really excited about the future on this. And next up, Andrea is going to give a brief demonstration.
Speaking of drinking from a fire hose. So I'm going to give a quick demonstration of how the ORD drainage and utility function is organized and used to complete a drainage design. This is going to be a quick 10-minute overview. So we will go through everything. I don't expect you to know how to do everything after this, and you shouldn't either, but it should at least give you an idea of the workflow that you'll use and kind of what this program looks like. So, before I begin though, I would like to go over some terminology that if you use StormCAD, you'll be used to, but like I used to use storm and sanitary, and so it's a lot of different wording. So for example, in ORD, a catchment is the term used for a drainage area. A conduit is used for any element that conveys flow, so not just utility conduit, but also a ditch or a pipe. And a node is a structure such as an inlet, manhole, ditch beginning, head wall, that is required on either end of a conduit. So all conduits need to have a node on either end. So we will begin by looking at how to lay out a system. Okay, so we will start on the layout tab and clicking or place node. When in our command window, place node, we can drop down our feature definition to select what type of inlet we want to put in. So I selected a type A. I'm going to select the gutter line here to place it on. So it will change with that, like I mentioned earlier. So I'm placing that, following all these white heads up prompts until I get it placed correctly. Once that's placed, I'm going to go and add a conduit. So my pipe from this structure to the one downstream. So I will do that under layout, place conduits. Under this prompt over here, I'm selecting my conduit type, which is going to be a storm pipe, an RCP. And I will stretch that between my two inlets. Unlike storm and sanitary, I think we can do it either way, and it'll, once it gets flowing, stretching that, it doesn't have to be upstream to downstream. But anyway, we can click on our inlets, go over to properties, and we can change our feature definition here. So if I entered it as a type A and I want it to be type 13 or something else, I can change that here. I can also select it. And by just selecting it, I can change that rotation angle. So rotating it is relatively easy with just that pop-up. I can also select it and look at the utility properties. And so that has more of the hydraulic properties of the inlet in it. Once you run the system, these fields down here that I'll say NA, they would be populated. So a lot of that is in there. And we can do the same with a pipe. So if we were to look at a pipe, we can change its feature definition in the properties tab. But just keep in mind, you have a properties tab and a utility properties tab that kind of contain all that information. So as we were creating this 2D model, in the background, this 3D model was being created. So you can see the inlet we placed, the pipe we placed, are both in there. And if we had our 3D utility file in here, we would also be able to see, you know, how close those are if we have conflicts. So that's kind of nice. All right, next we are going to add our catchment or drainage area. So I have this bright green area down here I'm going to use. Under layout, we'll use place catchment. I will select my feature definition for that catchment. That feature definition, the main thing it's controlling is the runoff coefficient at this point, which we can change later. So I will follow the prompts to select that area and attach it to this inlet. Okay, now it's green, the other color green, so it's in there. Unlike storm and sanitary, if I select this feature and I delete it, it will be out of the database. So in storm and sanitary, you had to actually delete that feature. Here you can, or you had to delete it from the database. Here you can just delete the feature and it's gone. I can undo and it's back, which is similar to other ORD workflows. Also, I can select it. Over here, I was looking at the properties, and I can change that runoff coefficient manually if I want to. So if it's different from what my feature definition was. There's where I deleted it and brought it back. All right, now we are going to look at laying out a ditch as part of our system as well. So like I said, any conduit, which would be a ditch, has to have a node on either end. So first I'm going to place an inlet again. So following that, those same steps, I'm going to change my feature definition. Oh, sorry, no, I'm not doing that yet. I'm placing a gutter. A gutter is basically it's defining our bypass flow. So where that would be a feature of one of our structures previously, we actually create a line and it's a feature in our drawing that represents that bypass flow. And so that's where we did layout, create gutter. So yes, that was the other point. Now we will lay out a ditch. And so first we will need to add, I'm adding a type 11. So that was layout, place node, changing my feature definition to a type 11. I will place that on the existing surface or whatever terrain I have referenced in here. You'll notice when I place it, a green area is going to come up over that. And that was because I have catchment definition checked over here on the right. So it's going ahead and defining a catchment based on that area, based on that terrain that I had selected. This is obviously trash. It's just the rain that is falling on top of that inlet. So when I'm placing an inlet in a random place like this, for this demonstration, it's obviously not helpful. I can just delete it and it's gone. But if you're placing it on a terrain and you have, a low point already in that, it can help you define those drainage areas or catchments. So I deleted that out. Now I'm going to place another node for the beginning of ditch. And so my feature definition will not be an inlet. I will drop that down and change it to a ditch point. And I'm just going to place it kind of where we'll pick the existing ditch up. And so when I place that, you'll notice in the 3D view over here to the right that a kind of two-dimensional channel piece will pop in. So that's placed. Now we can go to our place conduits command again. So layout, place conduit. I'm going to change the feature definition to a channel. Stretch that between our ditch beginning and inlets. You'll notice once that ditch comes in, you can see it in the 3D view. It wants to attach to the invert of that pipe, which is not what we want, obviously, with the ditch. This is something that KYTC and those developing these cells are currently fixing, but you need to watch for things like this. So in this instance, until this is fixed, you'll need to go in, select your ditch, and open up these properties over here. And you can actually manually change the elevation of any of these. So that's what, over here, the features, I'm changing the elevation of that. Once I change it, you see it pop up. So that's another benefit of having that 3D model open at times is as you're designing your 2D model, I wouldn't have seen that. And so now I can. Right, I am going to also add a catchment for this ditch right now, just kind of a dummy catchment so that we can put flow in this ditch. So in our analysis, you can see how we can check that we have flow in there. So I'll create that area again, layout, place catchment. I can change that feature definition if I want a different runoff coefficient. I'll select that area. And one of the things that you will notice is if I go to try to attach this to the ditch, it's going to give me that circle with the X through it. And you can't attach catchments to conduits. They have to be attached to a node. And obviously we don't want it attached to our type 11 because then it's not going in our ditch. So we can attach it to that node at the beginning of the ditch. Right, now we're going to look at this components tab. And this is where we're going to enter our storm data. Okay, so once we click on that, We have a few tables in here. You'll probably want to have a few tables. The first one is our IDF curve. So we have all of our important storm events in there. And the second one is 4 inch per hour table. So we can use that for our spread calculations. Nice, all of this is in one file contains. While we're in this components tab, I'm going to go ahead and touch real quick on this catalog button. That's where all of our inlets, conduit, our catalogs, and then the prototypes tab, which is what I've opened here. That's where all of that structure information is contained. That's how everything is defined. So these prototypes define cells, define our system. Now we're going to set up our analysis. So this is where we will create alternatives. So we will create an alternative for each storm that we want to model or run. So under rainfall runoff, I have a few different alternatives. There's a 4 inch per hour one, and it's referencing that 4 inch per hour table that we entered. So this is that part that's been talked about that's a little redundant. You feel like I have to enter my storm and then I have to make an alternative of that storm, and I have to make a scenario of that alternative. But that is how it works. Your scenarios can actually be multiple alternatives, but this is going to be the main alternative that you're changing when creating a scenario. So this is just popping back over to show you that I have that storm data in there. It's able to pull not just a table, but a column. So an actual like a 10-year storm event, a 100-year storm event. So I set those up in my scenarios or in my alternatives, and then I go to my scenarios, and each scenario references that alternative. So over here on the right, you can see all the different scenarios that I can change, but that rainfall runoff is what I'm interested in right now. Most of the rest you'll probably leave alone for this part. Okay, so once we have all that set up, we can select the scenario we want to run, select it, hit that green compute button. And you want to see this gray box at the end, this box. That means that it ran. If you don't get that, there you have a big problem. You'll still want to look at your warnings that you get and address those or decide what's not important, depending on which situation you're running. But that means it ran. So now, in order to see a little bit of like how, our water in our pipes, we can look at a profile. And so under layout, we're going to go to create a profile run, and we'll stretch that between our ditch node and our outfall. So now we have this profile run. We can go over to the Explorer tab, and under Drainage and Utilities, select the profile runs or expand out the profile runs. And the one I created was just called profile run. So I didn't change the name. But we can look at that in an analysis profile, or we can look at it in what you're probably more familiar with of just a regular ORD profile. So I will open that up here, and you'll be able to see the water depth within that. So that's a good indication also that it ran. So we've run our analysis, and now we need an output. So that is under Utility View tab. We will go to Flex Tables. We've kind of talked about these some. These are not the ones that Tim and KYTC have set up, but there will be those for our drainage filter purposes. You can still use them to see whatever you want to see out of your pipes or inlets. So this is a inlet or pipe table. This angle. So you can look at it here, but also if you want to edit it to have whichever feature is shown of a certain pipe or inlet, you can just right click on it. You can make a copy of it, and then you can change it, or you can just change it and enter any of these, have any of those in your table. So you can create a custom table with whatever information in it you want. So that was the super quick, here's how it works. But hopefully at least you got an idea of the workflow that this uses and some of its capabilities. There will be more training. I'll let Tim speak on that, but yeah. And
First of all, we want to talk about the future, Lord, and that for those of you who aren't getting the reference, that's Marty McFly in Back to the Future 3. He was Clint Eastwood. So there's the title. If you didn't get that, I can't help you. But you're not a good engineer if you're not very enough to get that. Okay? anyway, yeah, we do want to look at what, everybody wants to know, what's the future, where we push towards. One of the big things has been with ORDMO has been plan production. Anybody who's done the roadway plans knows that plan production has been a hassle. And I know with this last release, supposedly Bentley worked on the white space and making plan production a little bit easier. We're working with our consultant that's finishing our library. He's also doing the training. He's working on making sure that we have KYTC pipe sheets. They're more profiles rather than sections. We're also making sure that we're working on annotation for the pipe sheets and plan the profile sheets to go with the drainage. If you need more nodes that are beyond the 100, which I can't see, I mean, there might be a few out there, but most of them should be able to be broken up into multiple BGNs. But if you do need it, there is StormCAT Unlimited. And also, and it's something that Dave Lamb and I were looking at as far as needing to have pond routing, so have a pond pack and other functions. Civil Storm is available, but those are additional, incur additional costs, and you're gonna have to talk with Bentley about that one. It's based on the size and duration of use. I know Civil Storm, you get the pond model through pond pack, swim analysis, and watershed routing. We're also looking to see if it can import the XML files from other programs and do analysis. So that's something we're actually in the process of looking at. We've got training come up. Hey, David, September 20th to 22nd. Answer our question. So these are the upcoming dates of training that we've got with Kentucky Training LLC, which is Marcy. It's her company. It's all virtual at this point. I'm going to say at this point, I can reiterate, this is already in there. And as much as possible, we're trying to make this as easy to do an analysis and do a report that you can put in the drainage submittal so that it can be all in one platform. You already got it. You're already doing your design there. Another advantage is, as we mentioned, as your design changes, as you lay stuff out, you'll move with it. Parametric cells are on the horizon. Parametric cells are essentially cells that, as you manipulate them and stretch them, the data stretches with it. Pretty powerful. Right now, our library doesn't incorporate that because they don't have those yet. We're going to deal with that when it comes out. May take an entire new library, but we'll deal with that when we get to it. We're looking again at spring for that library. So with this training, my last thing is as you have questions, ask them, please. That's with anything, not just ORD. Any drainage questions? You have a question for us, my group, please ask us. Don't hesitate. And a lot of consultants are hesitant to ask until we get to a joint inspection. And I would say that would go through for the entire design group. We're supposed to be a team. Let's ask as we go. The more questions we answer up front, the less than we're answering in the meeting, unless we're having to deal with redoing stuff. Are there any quick questions? Yes, sir.
Can you put in a curb ditch?
Well, actually, yes, you can,
Vertically or
because
horizontally?
you can put in a curb ditch, yes. You can do that.
Horizontally, you
Yes. Horizontally.
You can add curvature essentially.
I mean, it's actually the point though, with actual curb.
No, yeah, you do have to.
You have to have the intermediate. You do it with points, kind of like you would have done Storm Sanitary. You do point.
So it's still
You do it.
segments,
The
I guess,
curvature,
but it's
it
all.
is segments, but the difference is in Storm Sanitary, it was each individual piece, whereas this is still one continuous piece, just
And only one slope. So there is no,
in
you
one
can't,
slope. So
you
that
can't have
is
breaks
an
in it
improvement.
vertically.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Right.
When you place your pipes from one node to another, one end to another, say you're coming in like skew, does it have the intelligence to adjust the bottom size and that bottom face, that box, such that, you know, I've got an 18-inch coming in, but it's on a skew, so the width would need to be that much more. Does it do all that, or do you need to go in there and manipulate the size and the depth.
I think we said it wasn't smart enough to figure out SKUs and box sizes, that you had to manipulate it within the design,
No.
how like you did storm sanitary.
Okay.
I think that was a question we had. I don't think it's that smart.
It'll just change it based on the pipe size.
Actual pipe size.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's-
pipe size.
It's
It
not,
doesn't have
because
the
you're right, you come in on, especially on a hard SKU, it'll take your box up a size, you're right. The other thing that was asked the previous one is, the depths that are set initially on all the vaults is the minimum depth that you would find in the, standard drawings. So that's the starting point.
That's where you start.
That's where it starts, and then you manipulate it. Something else I mentioned the last one, there are two, you have a, and this is very similar to storm sanitary and storm cap. You can design and you can analyze. So when you're designing, it will size stuff for you. When you analyze, it will take what you have in there and make sure that it's running okay. So, and you get into that in the training and everything else. Main thing taking this is, it's already in there, it's free. We're trying to set up as much as possible, do as much analysis, as much production and presentation that you can do for a drainage submittal, and I hope you all consider using this. The more we can get in one platform, the better. So, yes, sir. And we're evidently I'm out of time, so I want to thank everybody for coming, everybody online. Thank you so much. What?
You have.
They're gonna shoot into this. You really have to
Training.
Really good to be a super damn nerd.
Yeah.
You are.
Good job.
Oh, look at this nice shirt.
Oh, thank you, sir. Thanks.